Good afternoon, and we are live. I'm just going to check, make sure we can see all this, and just give me 1 second, everyone. We're going to make sure everything's working right. It's the first time I've done this, so hopefully it will all go well. All right. It does look like it's working. All right. Welcome and happy Saturday, everyone. Thank you so much to Charles for allowing me to do this, and for all of you that are here on a Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning, depending on where you are, to watch this live video. Thank you so much for being here, and we're going to spend the next hour chatting and talking. If you guys have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Hopefully I will be able to see them. And yes, I see the comments. All right. Charles said, hey, Bobby. So I know the comments work. So please feel free to leave a comment and questions if you have them. I love answering questions. So feel free to do that. Good morning, Clyde. Thank you for stopping by. Clyde Hall said, happy Saturday. We're going to start pretty simple. Until people get in, I'm going to talk a little bit about me. I'm an author who you may or may not have heard of. Part of the reason we're doing the takeover on Charles's page is I do appear in Pulp. Get this up here straight. There we go. It's hard to do this backwards. I do appear in Pulp Reality #1, which Charles at Stormgate Press published. I have the wonderful honor of writing the first team up between Charles's character Captain Hawkland and my character Lance Star Skyranger. You can see a Lance Star Skyranger poster there. We both have aviator characters that are active around World War II era, and thought it would be fun to team them up and see how they react when put together, just the two of them without their respective support systems, alone on an island full of pirates, smugglers, and scoundrels. The story's a lot of fun. I hope everyone who reads it is enjoying it, and we had so much fun that we're going to team the characters up again in future installments of Pulp Reality. And before I go sign off at 1 o'clock, we'll have a special announcement about something else coming to Pulp Reality that's going to be pretty cool that I'm excited about. So, thank you all for that. I don't know how many people are watching, so it doesn't really tell you. So I'm going to just keep talking like there's thousands of people here. Another bit of news. My most recent release, In the Wind, and they don't normally come with this. This is just my copy that I have handy. In the Wind is a mystery thriller that features a character called Sheriff Tom Myers. Sheriff Myers appeared in my very first published novel, Evil Ways. He then showed up again later in a novel called Deadly Games, and will appear in Evil Intent, which will come out in 2021. I love, you've probably heard characters and writers in the past talk about how characters talk to them, that we listen to the characters. We sometimes just point them in a direction and follow and see where they take us. And I know some people think we're crazy when we say that, but it really is true. And Tom Myers is a fantastic example of that. When I wrote the character in Evil Ways, I had absolutely no thought, plan, or intention of ever using the character again. It was just he was a secondary character in that story, and I had no real plans to see him again unless we did a sequel to Evil Ways, and then we might see him again. When I wrote so he was Tom Myers is the sheriff of Summersville, Georgia, which there is a real Somerville, Georgia. This is I wish I'd have named it differently now, but you know, Summersville, spelled completely differently, is a fictional town in Georgia that I created. It's based loosely on the mixing of 2 or 3 real towns. So there's different things I wanted from different areas. And so Tom Myers is the sheriff of Summersville, and he, like I said, he was only meant to appear once. When I got around to writing my second novel, Polish novel, Deadly Games, actually that was my third Polish novel, Deadly Games. Deadly Games came out, and Deadly Games focuses on 2 characters in the Atlanta area. But at one point in the story, it required the characters leave Atlanta and head out to a small town where something happens to them. So as I was writing it, I was just going to use a real town, but I realized, hey, I've created this town of my own called Summersville. So wouldn't it be cool if we just use it? It exists. I've already created it. I know it pretty well. And so I set part of Deadly Games in Summersville, again, with no intention of using any of the previous characters. So, but as I kept writing, this little voice in the back of my head would be like, isn't this where you would call the cops? Isn't this where you would call the cops? Why aren't the cops here? Why aren't the cops involved? And so it got to a point in the story where it just made sense for the sheriff and his deputies to get involved with the story. And so Tom Myers, Benjamin Dooley, Christopher Jackson, the characters from the Summersville Police Department, make their second appearance in Deadly Games, which is totally unrelated novel to Evil Ways, except for the fact that they both take place partly in Summersville. And so, excuse me. And so, unbeknownst to me, this was the start of me creating a little universe of characters that would interact. And so I did that, left that book, finished that book. Excuse me. Again with sorry, I'm not used to being up. I'm like a get up at noon guy, not be up before noon and productive guy. I thought it would be cool to, I would never see the character again after Deadly Games. And so, but the character kept sticking in the back of my mind and would every once in a while just kind of go, hey, I'm still here. And so last year, an idea came to me that would be a really good idea for Myers to have his own story, and that's where In the Wind was born, and is now going to be a series because I already have a second idea, so I'm working. I already have a plot for book 2, which will come out next year. I've just got to write the darn thing. But the reason I'm telling you all that, I'm very excited. A piece of news for today is that the In the Wind audio that narrated by Gary Baton is now available as of late last night on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. And so if you're interested in audiobooks, that's definitely a place to do it. Excuse me, one second. You can tell it's live. I had to blow my nose on camera. Oh, so unprofessional. So sorry. When I do these things with a group of people, it's easy. I can just mute mine, hop on. Charles commented, "Coffee. You need coffee." I have close. I have caffeine. I have Mountain Dew in my snow cup with Jeffrey Hayes art on it. The beautiful art there. And yeah, I have my Mountain Dew in my snow coffee cup. So yes, because I do need caffeine to start the day. I don't just jump out of bed bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, unfortunately. So, but anyway, that was the news about In the Wind. So, but as I said, we'll also have some news about Pulp Reality before I sign off at 1. We do have a question. All right. Zach Pitt asked, how many books have you written, Bobby? Ooh, that's a tough one because the number changes so often. I did write a list for I was interviewed. Someone asked it, so I I made a list of published stories or published books, and that are published pieces. That includes novels, comics, short stories. I've written a couple screenplays and audio dramas. I don't count them until they're out. So the audio dramas actually didn't count yet because they're not out yet. So of published works, as of right now, I'm at 149 published pieces. Like I said, that includes everything, comics and things of that nature. Now, I don't consider that. I didn't type in things like for like Life in the Faster Lane was a comic strip that I wrote and drew. I counted that as one published thing, even though that was a monthly strip that ran once a month for 12 years. I didn't count each of them as a published credit. So, because then that would kind of sound ridiculous. That would be a ridiculously high number. As you can see, well, actually, I'm going to turn the camera in the right direction. If you see the books stacked on the desk there, and then this stack here in my hand, those are all books of mine. I'm in the process of setting up a new bookshelf in the back. So those are all the ones I took off the shelf, those 3 stacks. The 4 stacks reading stuff, but those 3 stacks there, plus the stack in my hand, plus the Pulp Reality I got sitting over there, that is published work. And I think there's like 5 or 6 already on the bookshelf. Plus some audios and some videos and different things. Sometimes there's in some cases there are backgrounders, the backdrops are in the right place. There are sometimes multiple versions, like there can be a paperback and a hardcover, and I'll have both of them in the stack. Things like that. But yeah, as of the last count, it was like 100. What did I say? 149. Now, yeah, it's up there. Now, I don't count anything until it's published, and this has been a rough year for books actually coming out. Some of the things that should have come out this year have been delayed because of obvious reasons. And so I have multiple books that are finished and in production that with publishers. So I don't count those until they're out. So, and there's probably a good 7 or 8 that fall into that category, maybe more, maybe 10, because I do work ahead a lot. So, yeah. So hopefully there will be quite a number of books coming out in 2021, because hopefully we'll get back to a better place with a better production schedule, or better publication schedule. Because, like I said, this year's been rough on everybody. Some of my publishers have slowed down. I've certainly slowed down myself. I had intended Snowdown to be out the 1st of December, and that did not happen. So now I'm probably going to have that in January, which was not my original plan. But again, things get in the way. And so yeah, so hopefully 2021 will be a good year, because I am planning. I'm going to have I want to have at least 3, 4 now, since I'm pushing Snow down, the 6th book, into next year. I'd like to have 4 Snow books, at least 2 Sheriff Myers books. I'm going to have Evil Intent will see the light of day in 2021. I'm doing some stuff from another publisher. I'm doing 4 books in the John Hartness's Bubba the Monster Hunter universe, called Horror Houston Hunter Horror, and 2 of those are finished. I'm working on book 3 now. That's another one I've fallen a little behind on, so the delay in those is totally my fault. So those will hopefully be out next year. There are a couple of there are 3 Domino Lady projects in production, that I've done my part, and they're off to, so they're in production. Plus a few other things, a couple novels with different publishers, or novellas that I just, I don't have dates on until the publisher tells me they're ready to go. Plus I have a few other things I'd like to do with Ben Books, which is my indie press, and I'm going to hopefully try to get some more of those. I'm doing a Lance Starr serialized novella on Patreon, so I'll get that released on through Ben Books. Um, and so other things like that, freelancer stories and more snow stories. So there's a lot on the plate for 2021. So, and speaking of Domino Lady, who you can see over my shoulder here, Clyde Hall asked, how many Domino Lady projects have you done? And what versions of the character have you read besides the 6 original pulp stories? Very good question. Domino Lady projects. Okay. Well, my first Domino Lady project was for Sex as a Weapon, which is the cover. It's hard to do backwards. It's the cover you see right here. A beautiful cover by Uwe Jarling. The cover got us a lot of attention. It's absolutely gorgeous. That was my first. I wrote a short story for that, or a short, like I think it was like 10 to 15,000, somewhere in that range. So a nice short story for that. Through working on the anthology, I got to know and became friends with Nancy Holder, who also wrote a story in the anthology. And Nancy took over or started the Domino Lady comic series at Moonstone that came out after the anthology, and Nancy was writing those. And Nancy also writes novels and other things as well. Nancy got in a little bind on a deadline and asked me to help pitch in for her, which is how I got started co-writing a few of the Domino Lady comics with Nancy. And Nancy and I have had a wonderful collaborative process on, I think we've done 4? I think we've done 4 together. Maybe 5, 4 or 5 together. We've comics stories that we've done. So I wrote 4 or 5 of the comics, which with Nancy, which was a lot of fun. We were doing this one book called Domino Lady Threesome, which was the team up book, and Domino Lady, because of its spicy pulp beginnings, all of the titles are a little innuendo-ish. So Domino Lady Threesome is because it's a team up book with her and 2 other characters. And Nancy and I co-wrote books 1 and 2, and I wrote books 3, 4, and 5 solo. Unfortunately, the book did not perform individually quite as well as we had hoped, and so 3, 4, and 5 did not come out individually. But Moonstone is putting together a trade, which will be out. It's ready, so I think we're just waiting for it to be solicited and come out. So there will be a trade called Domino Ladies Threesome Trade, which will include all 5 of the stories that we worked on. So I'm guessing early to mid 2021 on those. I don't know exact dates because I'm not the publisher, so I don't know the exact dates on those yet. I do know that Moonstone has shared them in the coming soon on their website. So that's coming, and Gentlemen Prefer Domino Lady is the second anthology that's coming that has already been, touted, put on their coming soon page, and I have a story in that. But after while I was doing the comics, Joe at Moonstone, who knows of my fondness for writing thrillers, and Domino Lady, I've written Domino Lady, even though she's a pulp character, I've written her as thrillers. All of my stories with her, I've kind of given that thriller vibe. And I had this thread running through all the stories because my story in the anthology and a couple of the comics, I set between 2 of the stories of the original 6. And what I mean by the original 6 is there were 6 stories in 1936, I think, featuring the Domino Lady. And then she was gone. We didn't see the Domino Lady again until there were some comics in the 80s. And then, now in the 2000s. So I set the story between, instead of just after the 6, I set it between the 2 because I wanted to use a character who dies in one of the that later story. So I wrote this character who was a big game hunter, whose goal in the original stories, his goal was to eventually become governor of California, where all these stories are set. The Domino Lady stories are all set around Hollywood. And so I wrote this character I like the idea of it, so I put him in the stories because I just liked this idea of this character running for governor. He was never a big part; he was just there, you know, because he had appeared in the original stories, and we kind of knew what happened to him. So I just kind of let it go. And so, but Joe at Moonstone picked up on what I was doing, and so came to me and said, "Hey, how would you like to write a Domino Lady political thriller?" And so Domino Lady Money Shot, which I don't have one within reaching distance here. Yeah, the Domino Lady Money Shot was a novel that I wrote that details the story behind him running for governor. And there's a murder mystery involved. There's a lot of political intrigue involved, all set in 1930s Hollywood, which was a ton of fun to write. So, and then after that, there was one more. I wrote one of the comics that Nancy and I collaborated on was a Domino Lady Sherlock Holmes team up, where Domino Lady teams up with a much older Sherlock Holmes because he would have been in his 80s at the time her stories are set. And so Moonstone put together a trade of that, and Nancy had written a short story as well with the two of them together, and then we had the two issues of the comic. And so to make it even, I guess, or to wind out or whatever, I wrote a Domino Lady Sherlock Holmes short story that went in that book as well. That was called the Great Crate Robbery, where they're on a train and someone steals the contents of a crate that's still nailed shut, and they don't know how it was stolen. So Holmes and Domino Lady, go into detective mode and try to figure out who did it. And yeah, from there, hilarity ensues. So, probably I'm probably up to about 9 or 10 Domino Lady stories written at this point. And all my Domino Lady stories have been for Moonstone. I know as a public domain character. Plus, I've written her also in a couple. She does show up in a Lance Starr story at one point. She's not a main character, but she does show up in one because she's a cool character, and I liked having her there. So probably about 10, 11 stories she's appeared in. I've done them all for Moonstone. I've been offered the opportunity to write Domino Lady for other publishers, and I've not done it just because I'm already writing her for Moonstone, and I didn't want to. I felt it would be a little disingenuous to do her for other companies. I guess it was that dance with the one that brought you. So I've been doing Domino Lady exclusively for Moonstone, but there are multiple publishers out there right now doing some fantastic Domino Lady stories. I know I've read some of the ones that are. I'm totally going to blank on titles here. I know. Who was it? They also did some audios, and I'm totally blanking on the name. But I believe Lance Axe was involved with it, and I read those. Those were good, and they did some audios. There was Bold Adventure Press has done some Domino Lady stories. Airship 27 has done some Domino Lady stories, and I've read some. I haven't read them all, but I've read some of each of those, and everybody has interesting takes on them. There have been some really fun takes. We're all building from the source material, but with public domain, what you do is you take the source material, and we each kind of build our own bits on top of it. The public domain character is the foundation, and we're each building, in a certain direction. So something may happen in one of Moonstone's stories that'll contradict an Airship 27 story, but that's okay. They're still it's still the same character. It's just different takes on the character, and I think there's a lot of interesting stories out there, and I love the character. I think the character is fantastic. She is, especially for the time. In the time she was created, she was part of the spicy pulps, which were the pulps that usually ended up, for adults only because there was sex in them. You don't see the sex. It's not, it's actually pretty tame if you read it. It's kind of like the old movies where they go in for the clinch and then the camera moves off to the wall. It's the literary equivalent of that. They're gonna go. They walk into the bedroom, and we cut to another scene. you know, so but yeah, she was very. She's a very wonderful character, very smart character. She is quite the detective, and that's really what I fell in love with was the smarts that she uses as a writer. The it's fun to write her outsmarting the bad guys, because her gimmick. For those who are not familiar with the Domino Lady, who was a wealthy socialite. Her father was the district attorney, who was murdered by some mobsters, etc. There was a cabal of people he was trying to put away, and they murdered him. Ellen, who was abroad studying at the time, returns home and, notices that no one's doing anything about her father's death, so she decides to do it herself. And so, thus the Domino Lady is born. But Ellen is quite the detective, and so her MO is she would, when she knows who the villain is, and her villains were crooked politicians, mobsters, crooked businessmen, crooked politicians, crooked whatever. It was usually that, and they weren't like super villains; they were that kind of character. And so she would write these letters to the villain of the story, and she would use white ink on black paper and mail it to them. And basically, the letters would say, "I know what you did, and here's what I'm going to do to you." And she would send it to them, so they would be on guard against them. And again, this was the 30s, and so it was almost always male villains, and they would be on guard against her, but they always underestimated her because she was just a girl. And, and so then she would outsmart them, even though they were ready for her, even though she had told them, this is what I'm going to do, and they were prepared. She would then outsmart them and sometimes shoot them or jab knockout gas into them and knock them out. But she would outsmart them, get justice for whoever needed the justice. And then she'd also, rob them blind. And that's how she kept her socialite lifestyle, was from, it was funded by criminals that she took care of. So, yeah, so that's Domino Lady. When I first was asked to write a Domino Lady story, it was Ron Fortier who, at Airship 27, I had just done Lance Starr, the first Lance Starr anthology for him. And he was the first who introduced me to Domino Lady. And so at the time, there were only the original six. And there were seven, because I bought this collection that had the original six in it. And they had artwork by Jim Steranko, and Steranko had written a new Domino Lady story in that collection. And so I bought those and I read those, and really, just like I said, fell in love with the character and couldn't wait to write her after doing that. And I feel very fortunate that I've gotten to write her multiple times, because, it could have gone any number of ways. And the fact that, Joe at Moonstone keeps going, "Hey, you want to write something Domino Lady for me?" is just it's nice when it happens. And so I love the character. I hope to continue writing her for years to come. I would love to do another Domino Lady novel. I certainly think the character would warrants one. I'm excited about the short stories that are coming out in the anthologies and the comics. So yeah, so hopefully more Domino Lady come. Excuse me. Hi, Marianne. Marianne Millhouse says hello. Charles at Millhouse asks, "Are you doing?" And you're doing a Lance Starr comic book. Jealous. Yes, we are. We're doing some more Lance Starr. I've done a couple of short comics with some artists over the years, and we're in the process of putting those together for next year, as well as some other short pieces that I've written. We're going to try to. Lance is kind of, has kind of laid fallow for a little bit. We did the 4 anthologies with Airship 27. There is a novel that if I ever get the darn thing finished, it'll be ready to go. And so, but Lance is kind of fell to the wayside for a bit. And so in this year, we are actually in the last year, um, I ended up doing a couple of Lance shorts for some magazines, and so that was fun. It was nice to play with the character again, and so that led to me wanting to do other things. And so yeah, so we're definitely looking to do more Lance Star in 2021, including the comic collection. We may do some new comics to go with it. I still got to work all that out. But Lance Starr is a very cool character. And actually, that leads right into our next question, which is Zach Pitt asks, can you tell us the origin of Lance Starr? Okay. Well, Lance Starr Sky Ranger. I'll start with the origin of the character, and then I'll talk about the origin of the book. The character, Lance Starr Sky Ranger, his father was also an aviator, and he and his father and his father's friend, Professor Prentice, and his son Simon went on adventures when Simon and Lance were kids. And that was set up because at one point I planned, wouldn't it be fun to do an adventure or two of Lance as a teenager, and which we may still do. So they were going on these adventures, and eventually Landon Starr, Lance's father, flies off in search of a treasure, a great treasure that they're no one is convinced but them exists, and Landon is never seen again. So Lance inherits the tiny business his father had. And as Lance grows up, Lance turns it into a thriving business because not only is Lance an excellent pilot and an adventurer in his own right, but Lance has a great ability to design. And he has a crew that they design and build unique and one-of-a-kind aircraft. A lot of them that they use themselves, including the Skybolt, which is their signature plane. And they're actually on the Skybolt too, because the Skybolt does get shot down at one point by his arch enemy, the Baron Otto von Blood, who has a really cool comic booky mustache twirling kind of a villain name. So that Skybolt 2 is the plane they fly around in now, which is a silver Siskeline, which two cockpits, and but they travel around the world doing air shows and charity events, and they get into adventures and they take on private clients. So I can send them all over the world, and of course, since these are set around World War II era, every once in a while the War Department calls up and goes, "Hey, we've got a mission for you," and so the Sky Rangers all fly around the world fighting bad guys, monsters, and they get into all kinds of trouble. It can go science fiction. It can go, we've had them run into dinosaurs. We've had them go, and I'm not the only writer who's written Lance Starr stories. And they've traveled to alternate dimensions. They've dealt with birdmen. The serialized story that I'm doing now on Patreon and New Pulp Fiction heroes.com is they're fighting lava men. So we can go sci-fi, but we can also do one where it's just an espionage story, or it's the novel involves a giant ice cannon. So I mean, there's lots of different ways we can play with Lance Starr. He definitely falls into that sci-fi pulpy hero. But that's the character. The book started out. I was sitting next to Ron Fortier at Dragon Con. I want to say it's 2005 because that was the year that Evil Ways premiered. Evil Ways came out like a week before Dragon Con, so I was excited. I was at Dragon Con because I was at Dragon Con as a guest for my comics, but this was the first time I not had a novel, so I was very excited to show off my novel. And my table neighbor at the convention was Ron Fortier, and I'd never met Ron in person. But Ron and I knew each other online. We both knew, comics, and we'd talk. So we knew each other. And at the end of the convention, Ron goes home with a copy of Evil Ways. And it's a few weeks later. I get we talk, and he goes, we're starting this new thing, which it wasn't called Airship 27 yet, but that was what it eventually became. He goes, we've got this, we're starting this new thing. And I think you would be, you have a very pulpy style to your writing, and I think you'd be great. And we're going to tell some pulp fiction stories. We're going to tell some pulp stories. And I'm like, great. I just have one question. He goes, what's that? I said, what is a pulp story? Because I really wasn't versed in, when he told me what pulp story, what are considered pulp stories, I was like, oh, okay. So it's kind of like what I'm writing anyway. I just didn't have a name for it. And so the first book we were doing was this aviator character. Excuse me, I have to keep limbered up here. The first thing we were going to do was this character called Bill Barnes Air Ace, who was a real pulp character from back in the day. And so we started writing stories with that character. Then someone in South America, if I'm remembering this correctly, I could be wrong, claimed that they owned the character somehow. And on the better safe than sorry, we decided, let's just do something different. But we had already started writing our stories. And so through the group, new characters were created, kind of using the same archetypes. And so new characters were created. So that's where Lance Star and all them were created. Then through some reasons that I won't go into too much detail on, I ended up owning the character. And so taking that character, then I started adding things to it and adjusting things and adding this, adding that. Like I added the stuff about the adventures of his dad and the teenager, etc. So I built on it from there. But we kept doing the anthologies as well, where other writers could write stories. And so as more stories happen, the Lance Star world builds a little. And so now we've got this fully formed group of characters that are just a blast to write. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to do more of them. And so, but it's just one of those things that, it was the most pulpy of pulp stories. Because if you know anything about the history of the pulps, right, they would get so many, they would commission so many stories. So we've got 100 Captain Hazard stories, or we got 10 Captain Hazard stories then. Captain Hazard didn't sell too well the last 2 times. And I'm just using this as an example, So, okay, we're not going to do Captain Hazard anymore tonight, but we've still got 10 stories. It's like, great, we're going to create this new character. We're going to call him Mr. X. Go in and change the words Captain Hazard to Mr. X, and we've got stories. It's a very pulp thing to change a story from being a Shadow story to a Black Bat story, to a Bill Barnes to a Lance Star. Very pulpy type of thing to happen. And so Lance Star, that's how Lance Star came to be as a character. And hey, it worked out great for me. I'm proud of the character. I'm thrilled to still be writing the character. So absolutely just a fun character. Okay, hopefully that answered your question. Jeffrey Hayes said, hello all. Cheers to thee, Mr. Bobby Nash. Thank you, Jeffrey. And Matt, let me just say, Jeffrey did the cover for not only In the Wind, which is absolutely stunning. And by the way, as for those who weren't here earlier, is now available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes in audio book form. So I'll be sending. I posted something on the social media late last night when it came out, but I'm going to do an official press release and all that today. But Jeffrey did the cover to In the Wind, but Jeffrey also did the snow cover here, snow poster. There's another one here in the floor. I don't think you can see very well. I mean, if I can. Jeffrey did this one here as well. And, Jeffrey and I have been talking. There's more snow stuff coming. So you can find Jeffrey at plasmagraphics.com. So you should definitely check him out if you're in the need of any cover or poster work. Fantastic job. So, so free plugs. We like doing plugs, yeah. So thanks for coming, Jeffrey. Appreciate it. Kelly Austin says, "Hey Bobby, how's your day treating you? So far, so good. I'm not an early riser unless I have to. So I got up about 30 minutes before I started this. So it's great. That's all I've done is this, and so it's been a great day. A question, if I may, she says, do you make a decision to take out details that don't push your story forward, or does it take you, for example, a hard thought and time to come to that decision? Does your personal liking for character descriptions sometimes get in your way as you like what you've done and can't find the heart to cut some details down? Very early on, cutting things was hard. I did not, I was in the early days, it was like everything I write is gold, nothing leaves, nothing gets cut. Now, if it doesn't work, you know, not to say I get rid of it, but I can pull stuff out and drop it in a folder. I may use that somewhere else, or things like that. There are times where I will go through and, man, this isn't working. It just sometimes you can write yourself into a corner, because I don't outline. I don't do thick long outlines that are very rigid outlines. I have what I call bullet points. I know big plot points I'm going to hit. I know I need to do these 5 things in this story, and I will then usually point my character toward the first signpost and say, go, and follow the character to see how they get there, which allows me to have the best of both plotter and pantser worlds. And there are times where doing the pantser route does lead you into places where suddenly you're stuck, or you've written yourself into a corner, or you've done something that just doesn't work. And in that case, you have to backtrack. And there have been times where I've deleted whole chapters, and or pulled them out. Like I said, I don't delete them necessarily. I pull them out. Well, sometimes I guess I do delete them, but yeah, I pull them out and maybe save it for later, because you never know, it may work later and where it didn't work here. So yeah, so I've done that. I'm a little bit better at that now. It's easier to cut stuff or move stuff around. I've done that. That's something in recent years I've started doing more. I'm currently working on something where I was writing a chapter and I was like, man, something needs to happen before that. And I'd already written a chapter, and so I moved the chapters around and reordered them because it flowed better that way. And because something that happens later seemed too rushed, and so spreading it out made the story better. When I write, I generally like to trust my characters. Like I said, I'll start them here and go, okay, you've got to go there, send them on their way, and then I follow them and see how they get there. And so everything I do really starts with character, because if I took the same plot and I dropped Snow into it, Domino Lady into it, and Lance Starr into it, they would each approach the same plot differently, because their characters are so different from each other. And so knowing the character that I'm dropping into that plot informs the plot. It makes the plot go a different way, because whereas Snow might go about things one way, he might go in, he goes and gets some help and gets his friends and they get involved and blah, blah, blah. Domino Lady would go in, shoot somebody, seduce somebody, hit them with the knockout gas and go in on her own. She's not a big partner person, So different styles, different ways of doing things, Whereas Snow couldn't walk in and seduce the big mobster. It might not work. That kind of thing. So using the character first, that informs, where we're going, how we're going to get there. And it also allows for that, because I'm usually in that character's head, because I may use a different POV character from chapter to chapter, but in that chapter, I'm in that character's head, whoever is the POV character. And so not only do I get to follow them and see how they inform the story, I also get in their head and see how they react to the story, which can give you some great character moments and insights into those characters. And because, even when you're doing a series, even if you love the characters, you can survive a bad story. Because we all tell a story that doesn't work from time to time. It's going to happen. And like I've done 5 stories so far with Snow, some are more well regarded than others. Some have hit better. Not every story is going to hit at the same level. You're gonna have missteps. You're gonna have things that the audience doesn't like, but if they love the characters and you've got these characters in a place where people are liking the characters and they're consistent, you can survive a bad story because you still have great characters that people love reading about. They just didn't care for that plot, but they'll come back for the next one because they still love these characters. So for me, it's always starting with the characters and then, adding and taking out details, because I'm always learning about the characters. Even though I know the characters, I'm still learning things about them as I go. Sometimes you will find things just as you're writing dialogue and it'll click an idea and you go, ooh, that's a good character beat. Let me go set that up, or things like that. So I sometimes get fun surprises following my characters and seeing what they'll do. Sometimes they don't do what I want them to, which can be a pain. But yeah, so but yeah, no, it's one of those things. It was a hard lesson to learn, but now I can cut. Yeah, I can cut with the best of them. So, Russell Allen says, hello, everyone. Hi, Russell. Thanks for coming. Anybody else has any questions? We've reached the end of it, but please, we've got about 12, 13 more minutes. I'm happy to answer any more questions. I know we've talked a lot about Domino Lady and Lance Starr, which is very cool. I did not expect that, but it's very cool. I've been writing both of those characters since the early 2000s, which is about 2005, I guess, is when I started writing both, 2005, 2006. And so it's really cool to be here in 2020 still talking about these two characters that I love so much that, yeah, so it's great. And as a younger wannabe writer, I grew up reading comics. I fell in love with comics. That was where my first love of writing came, was writing comics, which I still do from time to time. And so with comics, the idea of doing something for years, getting on a book or a series for years was a big idea for me. It was it was a goal. So the fact that now here in 2020, I'm still writing Domino Lady, who I've been writing for 15 years now. Lance Starr, I've been writing for 15 years now, or Snow, who I've been writing, even though it's because I started in with another publisher. So Snow, that I've been writing for 5 years now. These are wonderful things to me as a writer because I always wanted to get on a series and revisit the same characters over and over again. And I'm really excited to be able to do that. So let's see. We got another question. All right. Clyde Hall asks, changing characters' names to keep stories viable in the tradition of Robert E. Howard's Sailor Steve Costigan and Dennis Dorgan. Absolutely. It's a pulp, I guess you call it a trope. It's a pulp trope. It happened a lot in the early days. It happens now. I've had at least 3, maybe 4 projects where that's happened. Where I wrote one licensed character for a publisher, and I wrote for multiple books. I just we did a bunch up front, and then the license went away, and we still had a book that hadn't come out yet. So that was the character. It's like, okay, this book featuring this character now features this character. Make the appropriate adjustments. And so we went back and did rewrites to make the story with the new character. So it happens. It still happens now. Like I said, it's happened to me a few times, and it's interesting. There are times where it works better than others. I think the Lance Starr example, it worked really well. Turning the Spider stories into Black Bat stories, I don't think worked as well, just because the Spider and Black Bat are like so vastly different. But like I said, we made it work. That's the thing, is you have to just I often equate writing as the writing career to juggling. You have to learn how to you've got multiple projects going at one time. While you're working those multiple projects, oh, here's some edits. That adds another ball to the juggle. And like, oh, here's some promotion work. So as writers, we're constantly in and out of projects, and so same kind of thing. We have to be able to adjust, adapt, and sometimes if you have to change them, you have to change them. And so, yeah, that's that. Jeffrey Hay says, you also geese the hell out of us about killing one of our faves. I have been known to kill a character or 20. Someone told me at a convention once that she goes, do you realize that you kill someone in everything you write? And I was like, no. And then I got to looking at the table and I'm like, well, holy crap, you're right. I kill somebody in everything. So then I purposefully wrote a few where I didn't kill somebody just so I could say no. But I do like killing characters. Not for sadistical reasons, but it's easy to get attached to characters. And it's easy to feel protective of your characters, which can sometimes make for boring stories. And so I'm not averse to, if the story demands it, killing a character. Sometimes to the detriment of my plans. I'll give you an example without spoiling anything. There's a character in the Snow books who I had intended to be in all 6 of Series 1, who I decided to kill in book 3. And so it totally screwed up my plans for books 4, 5, and 6 to a degree. But another character stepped in, another character who had not been intended to be as big and rich of a character. That character stepped in, became an even better character because of it. And I think the stories became better because of it. And that's where trusting the characters worked. Yes, this character as I'm writing, this character's like, it's time for me to be killed. And so instead of fighting the urge and going, no, I have a plan, I trusted where the characters were taking me. And, I got a better book out of it. And that's happened a few times in stories where something happens and there's a bit of even to where it surprises me. And then I go back to make those clues fit for the twist, and I find out that the clues are already there, that they were coming out in bits through the character's dialogue or actions. But Bobby the writer hadn't put them together yet, but the characters knew, but I hadn't put it together from a narrative perspective. If that makes any sense. It sounds like I'm crazy, but yeah, that works. So I'm not averse to killing characters. I'm taking one more question here. This will be our last one, and then I've got an announcement, and then we'll be done. Robert McIntyre. Hi, Robert. How you doing? Good to see you, sir. Robert asks, are there any plans for more Rick Ruby books? I'm going to give you a scoop. Here's a scoop. This is first time it's been. I talked to Sean Taylor yesterday on the phone. Sean Taylor is the co-creator of the Ruby Files. Sean and I had an amazing time creating this character and the secondary characters and that world. It was oddly enough, it was created around in December. I forget the year back when we created it, but it's a funny story. It's probably too long to tell in what little time I've got left, but Sean and I and his daughter Karis were all in a restaurant, having a meal and talking up, creating characters, jotting notes. So we're talking about murder and mayhem and, all the fun things that go with it. And at one point we realized that at all the tables around us, they had all stopped talking and were listening to what we were talking about. And at that point we knew we had something. So, but I talked to Sean yesterday. Sean is working on stories for Volume 3, and he has plans to do a standalone novel. So that's pretty cool. I don't know dates or anything on any of that, but yes, there will be more Rick Ruby. So yes, definitely keep an eye out for that. I love that character. That character is really, overall the people that worked on it in the book itself has won a lot of awards, which was very exciting to us and very, makes us feel like we reached some people with that one. And so yes, there's definitely more. I just don't know when, but there are more coming. Real quick on the announcement that I mentioned earlier, we talked about Pulp Reality, which is part of the reason we're here today. Pulp Reality is just released. I'm doing a story also for Volume 2, which will feature snow, so that should be fun. In Volume 3, we are going to premiere a pulp comic in Volume 3 that I'll be writing. It's going to feature one of my characters, the Freelancer, who I write short stories as well for, with art by Clayton Merwin on pencils and Jeff Austin on inks. It will be absolutely gorgeous because they are both phenomenal artists. And Charles has greenlit that, and so we are going to do that for Volume 3. I'm very excited. Yay that. And also just a reminder that also the In the Wind audio is now available. We also have paperbacks, obviously, and ebooks and audiobooks. So lots of different ways. Tom Myers will return in 2021 with his second novel, which I don't have a title for yet. I've got like 3 or 4 titles that I'm bouncing back and forth between because sometimes I don't really know. I don't really know what I'm going to title it until I'm done because sometimes you get title ideas as you're going. So thank you everyone for coming out today. I'd like to say too, stick around from 1 to 2. Clayton Merwin, who we just talked about, Clayton will be here doing a live drawing session. So you can actually see him create some of his beautiful artwork. Clayton did the Lance Star Captain Hawkland artwork for Pulp Reality. Hold it up there for you. Absolutely. Sorry, it's hard to do backwards, but absolutely stunning artwork. And if you want to see Clayton do it live, stick around from 1 to 2. I know there will be more people throughout the day doing this takeover as part of the Pulp Reality launch. The Pulp Reality paperback is available now. You can get it through Amazon. The ebook will be out in January, I believe is correct. Charles can verify that in the comments, but I believe that's happening in January. So, and then Pulp Rally 2 somewhere in the spring or summer, I'm assuming. So he still has to get work in. Some of us still have to write our stories. And as writers, this may not surprise many of you, but we like to wait till the last minute to do things. That's just how we do things. But thank you all for being here. If you have more questions or want to say hello, please follow me to my Facebook page or leave them here, and I'll come back and answer them in the comments here or ask on my page. And thanks again to Charles for inviting me to be part of this takeover today. I hope you guys will stick around and see Clayton draw, which, if you've never watched an artist create something, it is an absolutely fantastic experience. Part of the fun of going to cons is standing and watching artists draw. It's probably not fun for the artist, but it's fun for us to stand over their shoulder and watch them draw. And I'm sure Clayton is going to do something absolutely fantastic here for you in about 1 minute. So with that in mind, I'm going to sign off. Please, like I said, follow me over on my Facebook page or my author page, which is facebook.com, author Bobby Nash. You can also find me at bobbynash.com, ben-books.com, abrahamstowe.com. And I'll post all these in the comments here in a minute when I'm done. And thanks again, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.